Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between the hills, there lived a poor man named Tomas and his wife, Lucia. They had a modest cottage and a patch of land that Tomas worked with his hands every day. Their farm was small, with just enough to feed themselves, but it was a constant struggle. The soil was rocky, the rains unpredictable, and the seasons harsh. Tomas was a man of pride, never asking for help, but the weight of the world often pressed down on his shoulders. Lucia, on the other hand, was a woman of strength and kindness. While Tomas worked the land, she tended to their garden, cared for the chickens, and cooked simple meals with whatever they could grow. She knew the hardship they faced, but she never complained. Instead, she found solace in the small moments, sharing a cup of tea with Tomas in the evening, the joy of a good harvest, or the sound of laughter that echoed in their home when they were together. One particularly dry season, their crops withered, and the village's wells began to run low. Tomas grew desperate. He spent days walking the hills, looking for work, but no one could afford to hire him. The weight of failure hung heavily on his heart. One evening, as Tomas sat by the fire, staring into the flames, Lucia approached him, her face full of determination. "Tomas, we can't keep waiting for things to change. We must create our own opportunity." "But Lucia, how? We barely have enough to survive as it is," Tomas replied, his voice filled with doubt. Lucia smiled gently. "We have each other, and we have our land. Let's plant what we can, but this time, let's try something different. We can use the old techniques my grandmother taught me. Let's grow herbs and vegetables that don't need much water. And we can sell them in the market. We can make something out of nothing." Tomas looked at her, a spark of hope kindling in his chest. He had always admired Lucia's resourcefulness, but this idea was different. It was bold. The next day, they began to work together. Tomas dug new plots while Lucia carefully sowed seeds. They tended the land with love and patience, using natural fertilizers and ancient methods that required less water. They fought the elements with determination, refusing to let the land defeat them. As the weeks passed, their crops slowly began to flourish. Tomas and Lucia's new venture, though small, was enough to feed them and bring in some income. They would take their herbs and vegetables to the village market, and word spread quickly about the couple's hard work and the freshness of their produce. The villagers, who had once looked past them, now came to buy what they grew. Seasons changed, and with them came prosperity. Tomas and Lucia were no longer just surviving, they were thriving. The farm grew, the garden flourished, and their small cottage began to feel full of hope. But more than that, Tomas learned an important lesson. He had spent so many years thinking of himself as a failure, but with Lucia by his side, he realized that together they could overcome anything. They were not just a man and a woman struggling against the world, they were a team, a partnership built on love, patience, and perseverance. Years later, as Tomas and Lucia stood on the porch of their home, watching the sun set behind the hills, Tomas took her hand and smiled. "I used to think we had nothing," he said. "But now, I know we have everything." Lucia squeezed his hand and smiled back. "Together, we have more than enough."